I'm Lindsay Williams, and on What's the Vibe this week? What's the vibe with the Rupert Murdoch News International News Corporation's scandalous phone hacking scandal? Of course, it is about phone hacking, but what is phone hacking? Throughout history, journalists have used both fair means and foul to gain stories, to gain a march on the opposition. In the old days, for example, a reporter might have gone through the dustbin of one of his targets. He also might have done this, might have put on a flat cap and a pair of sunglasses in order to disguise himself and followed the target down the pub, down the local post office. The phone hacking saga has, of course, caused ripples throughout society in the UK and the world. Here's what's happened chronologically, and it's very complicated, so follow me like a leopard here. In 2000, Rebecca Brooks, that flame-haired Jezebel in the employ of those Murdochs, was appointed editor of the News of the World and then of the Sun newspaper straight after that. And then both newspapers, of course, part of the News International, were under the spotlight because of a few rumours that first started flying around. One, Andy Coulson, after Rebecca went to The Sun, was then made editor of the News of the World. 2005, that News of the World then published a story about Prince William's knee injury. No one knew about this, so the only way they could have got that was to intercept voicemails from Prince William's phone. Now it starts to get a bit messy. 2006, police arrest Clive Goodman, who was the royal editor of the News of the World, and then a nasty individual called Glenn Mulcair, who's a private investigator, because they proved they had hacked into the phones of various royals. Now it starts to get really interesting. 2007, Goodman and Mulcair are jailed. They went to jail for what they'd done, but still it's confined to them, so it's still a relatively minor story. 2008, James Murdoch, son of Rupert Murdoch, pays £700,000 to a football boss by the name of Gordon Taylor because they'd hacked into his phone. Still, it's a relatively minor affair, but 700,000 quid, quite a lot of money, so they wanted to shut something up. 2009, June 2009, Rebecca the flame-haired Jezebel is now made CEO of News International, despite the scandal that's brewing below the surface. July, it's revealed that the reporters have been hacking away like lumberjacks for years at both the News of the World and the Sun. Let's move on to 2010 now, May 2010. Andy Coulson, the ex-editor of the News of the World, then joins David Cameron, now the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, as his spin doctor. And he's already tainted because he was in charge when these phone hacking allegations occurred and when his employees were actually jailed. January 2011, investigations gather pace as the gorgeous Sienna Miller says that she's been hacked, and the News of the World admits it and says, Sienna, here's £100,000. It also emerges that James Murdoch over the years has paid more than £1 million to other people who have privately brought actions against the News of the World. Andy Coulson then falls on his sword and the net tightens on the Murdochs. So Andy Coulson resigns as the spin doctor for the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom because of the growing storm. On July the 4th, it was revealed that the News of the World had hacked into the telephone of a teenage girl that had been murdered in 2000. Everyone was horrified by this, and to cut a long story short, because of the tainted image of the News of the World, the Murdochs then closed that newspaper down, the biggest newspaper, the biggest English-speaking newspaper in the world. News Corp withdraws its massive bid for Sky B, which is the parent of our favourite Sky News. Rebecca resigns and is subsequently arrested, but is now out on bail apparently, but being closely monitored. And the Murdochs and Rebecca sit in front of the Select Committee in order to answer questions about the whole affair, and during which time the only fun part of the whole saga is when Rupert Murdoch is attacked by Johnny Marbles, who is a comedian, and he was attacked with a paper plate covered in foam. And the latest news over the last couple of days is that James Murdoch has been accused by former employees of lying to the Select Committee, the UK government Select Committee, about how much he knew about the phone hacking scandal. I'm Lindsay Williams, and that's this week's What's the Vibe? It's all about phone hacking.